About Thinking by Edward Minton. It was recently put to me that a very large problem in society now is that we're not learning how to think. The person who stated this was definitely not saying that we're stupid, but rather that there is more to thinking than we might think. Many years ago, I used to have the job of boundary riding for a few days each year. In roughish country, one would ride a horse with pliers, axe, wire strainers, and as much water as was possible, which, in view of the other requirements, was not much. Only occasionally did one dismount to mend the fence. The bush was good company, but there was time and solitude aplenty. I had decided that thinking was the most valuable and productive activity of a person, and that, of all things, it gave the best value for effort. It was not physically painful, and once one had a few tools with which to do it, it may prove to be interesting and even entertaining. I would give it a go. Every day that I rode some of the 37 miles of boundary, I would set myself a philosophical question. Questions from, is man basically good or bad, to, how can one properly determine the answer and express it, to the square root of -1 were considered, as was, how do we actually do thinking? I came to some tentative conclusions about this last one. The most important quandary was that of how thinking actually happens in a person. I experimented with myself and found that it doesn't happen in the brain at all. You can test this by asking yourself a ridiculous question, such as, could you enhance your personal good looks by dyeing your hair purple? We know this is nonsense immediately, without any conscious thought, but how? Because emotion informs us. It works with more subtle philosophical questions too. I spent a whole day examining whether man is basically good or basically bad. This is an enormous question and involves inter alia, self-interest, differing concepts of where one's self-interest and that of others actually lies, extended or immediate, and of course much else. Sometimes we might place a question into a mental prison, revisiting it occasionally, provoking it to see how it performs, and allowing time for the idea to ripen after a fair hearing. If we have prepared and trained ourselves to listen to our emotions properly, not just the dramatic first impulse, but the echoes and shadows within and following the initial emotional response, we will find ourselves thinking about ourselves. The reason we respond with revulsion, doubt, acclaim, or surety is also there if we carefully take note. It might be that our friends would laugh at us, that we're revolted by unnatural cosmetics, or that we would shun attention. Your reason for your revulsion or whatever is available only through examining your emotion, and these are only to be found in the gut feeling, or in the heart, or in what is really the solar plexus. The rationalists are wrong. We access our subconscious minds by examining the emotions that it imparts to us. Then, by asking, why did I feel this emotion, we learn to pull some of the subconscious thought into the conscious where it is accessible. If we dwell upon the subtle and faint echoes following the first surge of emotion, rather than receiving the first blast and hurriedly moving on, a whole world opens up. If we really listen to the emotional messages from our subconscious honestly and don't try to fudge or fake it, we really learn to think. At least we open the possibility of creative and original thought. Of course, original creative thought is not the only type of thought that passes as thought. The other sort is where something is put into our minds by others and we remember and can regurgitate it. We all need this to pass exams, because the others who put it there then sit in judgment upon our thoughts, and if we have it aplenty, we may be acclaimed as brilliant and live our whole lives without an original creative idea. We may term this computer thought, the lowest form in which it comes, necessary though it is. Is higher intelligence to be had by working out what we think, or rather by finding out what we think? If thought is not a product of ego or of any effort in its initiation, but is a potentially observable phenomenon, then rationality is but a tool to be employed and practiced in the art of its discovery. Descartes may have been muddled. I feel, therefore I must have thought. If I can ask myself on this basis what I thought and why, then this is evidence, perhaps, that I am conscious and that a personal being is present. The truth is that no university can teach you anything about creative original thinking if you haven't already taught yourself to do it. They might teach you what they want you to say about it, but no more. How can you do this higher form of thinking? By practicing it, by listening with the utmost honesty and sensitivity to the emotional, multi-layered stimuli you are induced to feel by your subconscious, God-given mind, which are otherwise inaccessible. Solitude helps, and silence too, especially in its early development. It cannot be done by remembering stuff, or even remembering infinite stuff. So what do you think, and how do you do it? Can it be that most of our thinking takes place beyond our reach, in the subconscious? We can't think our way into our subconscious minds, but perhaps we may feel our way in there by paying careful attention to the hints given through emotion. I wonder whether we should start teaching to think before we start thinking to teach.